Setting up the camera, making sure it's in that. Right. Okay, so what am I doing today? Today, I am taking pricking irons, okay, not these two, but these are the pricking irons, and wrapping them with leather, okay? So this is partly done, and it still needs a second sanding and some finishing work done. Essentially this, if you watched the previous live here on Leathercraft Masterclass, you would have seen me stitch this in. This is actually two pieces of leather, one here and one here, and it's stitched on the edges here. And we have an excess that has been mushroomed over, which you might be able to see there. And it's now hiding the stitches. So it is stitched in place, but it's hidden. Okay, this is mainly decorative. I'm going to be honest with you. It's mainly just a bit of fun, but also an opportunity for me to teach how to use this for lots of different things. If you wanted to, I don't know, leather wrap a hip flask, or perhaps you wanted to create a rolled bag handle that's completely cylindrical with no visible seams on there, or anything that you can creatively think of. This is a really fun way of doing that, and it's nice and smooth. Also, these small pricking irons, sometimes if you're doing a long seam, you're making some bags, belts and things like that, after a while, because they're so small and the edges are quite squared off, you do start to get a bit of discomfort in the fingers, because usually, well, the way I do it is I press down with the pricking iron into the leather, and I'm using a little bit of pressure on there to keep the leather flat against the surface of the table. So if there's any movement or warping in the leather, I'm using the pressure from the pricking iron to flatten it, so as it's driven through straight. So that, after a while, begins to hurt the fingers a little bit. Tiago, hello, good afternoon from Portugal, good afternoon from the United Kingdom on an incredibly windy day. It's like a gale blowing out there. So far, we've mushroomed over the edges, okay? So it's almost like it flowers. Given it a sanding, I've given it some polish with some diluted tokonol, which I have here on the side. And I've let it completely dry. And now what I'm going to do is attack it again with a slightly higher grit. Well, this is 1200 grit, so quite fine. So we'll see how we go with that. I do have some coarser grits available if it's not doing the job. But we're going to go around the edges again. I do have a piece of scrap leather I did there, just in case I need to press it against the work surface. Just going to bring you down. Adam Harkness says, afternoon, Phil. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. Studio Keith, how's it going? This is really cool because once you've finished with it, it's essentially seamless. You've smoothed all the edges into the other one. And then when you finish by polishing the surface, you kind of bring the grain back again. You can see I'm kind of smoothing it there. And sometimes what I like to do, it depends on the way the wind's blowing. Sometimes what I like to do is get a little bit of, polishing liquid, like, I'm using diluted tokonol here, or whatever gum, on there before you get rid of the dust. Okay, so as you're sanding, you're creating dust, and it's actually filling the voids. So when you add a layer of your liquid, your gum, whatever, and polishing it in, you're kind of gap filling in a way. And that's one way to get a nice polished edge is to actually leave it on there. And your polishing compound will kind of set with it. So going over the main surface now. At this stage, we're not really removing a lot of the leather. We're just kind of polishing that surface. I've seen other wraps on tools, but they're usually done with a baseball stitch. I'm going to have to see your previous video on how you do this one. Yeah, it's a fun one. It's a different one. It involves stitching, but it's hidden on the inside, so you don't get to see it. I think I got this technique from, I think it's a French book, The Art and Techniques of Leather. I think it's from there. They do a few different ones in saddlery where they kind of hide the seam. One is to make incisions on each side of the wrap, and you open up the incisions with a little water and you bone folder, and then you stitch through there, put in glue, and then it goes back down again and you polish the whole thing in. That's one that's quite popular in saddlery, more advanced saddlery really. But this is, I think it's from that book. I'm not sure. If it's not from that book, it's from some other book. Maybe a vintage one that I've owned. I'm pretty sure I got it from somewhere. I imagine it's easy on the fingers, no thread rubbing on the fingers. No, yeah, it's very smooth and rounded now. It's a lot more comfortable for sure. Do you mean like you do the hidden stitch on the leather soles? Yeah, that's not this one, but yeah, where it's opened up, stitched on the inside, and then closed on the underneath on the leather soles. Yeah, exactly that. In saddlery, there's one where you basically make leather rope. You get a core material, wrap leather around it, butt it up end to end, and you do that on each side and then stitch it through together and then close it up and then polish it, and it looks like one long thick piece. I don't exactly know what it's used for in saddlery because it's not my forte. In fact, you can see, you might be able to see, yeah, see a bit of yellow on the end. I didn't match the thread to make it stand out a little bit more for the video, of course, but you can kind of see those are binding over stitches on the end. And you can kind of see the join between them a little bit. It'll probably be a bit more visible once I've polished it up, but you get the idea. But yeah, although we're doing it on a pricking iron here, and there is a practical method to this, or practical reason, it's one of those things that's very easily transferable to other things, and to make very interesting objects that are durable but that have no obvious seam. I always like a little bit of mystery in leather work. You know, sometimes it's cool to make something and people kind of try and figure out how you did that a little bit. I'd say a lot of arguments, or not arguments, discussions about whether leathercraft is art or whether leathercraft is craftsmanship. Some people argue it's one versus the other, and some people say it's a little bit of both. But I think there is one fundamental piece missing from that, and is part magic as well. You know, this even if it's not magic for the average person that looks at it, another leathercrafter will look at it and go, like, how would you do that thing? And that doesn't make sense. There's a little bit of a magician, as it were, in leathercraft. A little bit of magic. You're part magician, part craftsman, part artist. That's my philosophy on it, or my thoughts on it. I like to have a little bit of magic, even if it's just something small or subtle. It's like doing a magic wallet in all leather. Yeah. Guys, feel free to ask any questions if you would like to. Usually see them with rubber bands, but it's not the same. The only thing about these fine grits is they do get clogged up pretty well with dust particles. You know what? I use this for removing adhesive and stray edge paint. This block, but technically this is used for like bench grinders to get the particles that build up inside the grain of a bench grinder wheel. Let's try and see if it works on sandpaper. It kind of does a little bit. Because you use these on sanders as well. I think this might be... I just dropped it on the floor. Might be a little bit fine. It's removing some, actually. I actually didn't think that was going to work. But it has. Nice, someone's work today, sanding, yuck. Have I tried the veg tan leather made with olive oil? No, I have to be honest, I haven't heard of that. I know that you can do oil tanning, but I haven't heard of olive oil tanning. Do you own a sewing machine? I've only seen you doing hand stitching. No, I don't own a sewing machine. Hand stitching is just what I've chosen to do. Machine stitching is just not something that interests me, if I'm honest. Perhaps if I was in more production or something like that and I needed to do some products or parts of products with machine stitching, yeah, I'd totally consider it. So I'm just going to finish off sanding a little bit here. And then I'm going to be doing some polishing if you guys want to stick around. Just not getting it done with that fine grit, so I'm going to move to about 800 here. Very lightly. It's a bit more aggressive, as you can see. Yeah, that's done it a bit better, actually. How long till you move? It's still all up in the air. I'm not 100% sure. Soon, very soon, I hope. If it goes ahead, it's going to be in the next few weeks for sure. But you know how these things are. There's so many more. Even though everything's approved, you've still got to show this and that, and then wait for that person to do this. You know how it works in a chain. There's always something that you, some kind of delay that you didn't anticipate. It's taken so long, it's got to the point I'm just kind of carrying on living my life and waiting for the green light. Because moving all this equipment in here is not going to be fun. So now I'm going along the edges here, and where the edge kind of blends into the main part, I'm making sure that I'm going one way rather than in, which could potentially lift it up. It shouldn't do, but we're not going to tempt fate. And opening up the grain like this just helps get it ready to accept the polishing compound that I'll be using. So at this stage you have to be quite careful with it. Oops. The olive oil tannery is called Omega. Okay. Hello, Anne. Hello, Joko. What are we sanding today? I am doing a leather-wrapped pricking iron. And we are sanding the surface, getting ready for polishing. There's a lot of stress moving. Yes, it's been a very long time since I first did it. But that was when I bought my first house, which was many years ago now. Been there for a while. Working the other side, getting the angles in. All right, so pretty much done. I'm just going to give it another hit with the fine grip. Which is kind of like pre-smoothing it. You want to smooth it as much as you can with abrasives. Which almost gives it a polish in itself. Okay, so there we are in the roughened version, just taking off some high spots in there. Let's do a little bit of clean up here before polishing. Now, where has my brush gone? Oh, it's fallen down. Yeah. Actually, no, I said I was going to try something different here. I'm going to leave the dust in the grain, because that gets sealed in and is slightly gap filling. So you'll see now, as I put this on, it's darkening, a bit much there. Don't want to put too much on. We don't want to get this soaked. Just attacking the surface there. Okay, getting a little initial dampness. Oops. What I'm going to do is put this on. This is what I use to polish shoes or leather edges with like boot polish. It works quite well on here. Just smoothing it first of all, just kind of going one direction rather than agitating backwards and forwards. And then once you get an initial smoothing, like a polish, you can then start going backwards and forwards. And even just doing that in one direction, you get a little bit of a shine start to appear on there. Let's do the other side. Hit it with a little bit more. Again, one direction. Just get that initial smoothing. Okay. Now, this is a functioning product. It doesn't have to be, like polished to the nines. I'm just kind of going for it because it's fun to do. Just attacking the edges now. You could use a bit of canvas for it as well. It's just because I have it available, I'm used to using it. So a little bit of polishing on the edges. And you can go as far as you want with this, really. You can keep going finer and finer with the grits. I'll eventually give this a little a Knorber wax or something, a little boot polish or something, actually have some parade gloss, probably just one layer of that, just give it some water resistance and a bit more shine once it's completely dry, of course. So just going in one direction, pressing the grain down. Yeah, just one little application, Tokonol. It still feels quite nice. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to, where have I put it? Switch to a wooden slicker. You'll polish it so much you won't be able to hold it. Actually, you know, when a little bit of wax on the surface, you'd think that would make it slippery, but it doesn't. So that will be doing that at the end. Yeah, I mean, yeah, once you grip it, no, it feels fine. But yeah, I get what you mean. Okay, so let's try that. And you can press down the high spots a little bit easier with the wood slicker. Which I'm seeing here. Makes the surface just a little bit more uniform. Just pushing in one direction again. And then once that, the leather will tell you when it's ready to start polishing backwards and forwards. It will start to get that shine all of a sudden. That's a bit brighter, as you can see. The wood slicker is doing a little bit better of a job because it's evening out that surface a little bit more. So to be honest, if you're going to do this, you could have just started with this. I wanted to see how the cloth would go first of all. Do the other side. So the cloth gives a good finish, but it's and it's still polished. It's just not as even a surface, and the more even the surface and uniform it is across the grain, the more shine it will give. Let that soak in for a second. Beautiful work. Thank you very much. What leather is this? This is, there's an offcut of it there, is vachetta. So it's an Italian vegetable tan leather with, and it's been treated with oils, like sago oil, something like that. But it's an animal-based oil. I think it comes from like hooves and stuff. But it doesn't really matter. It's just vegetable tan leather. That's the main thing to get this effect. And this, believe it or not, is just a scrap piece of like near the flank of like stretchy, crappy leather. And it still works. It's not a premium cut, just using an offcut of it here. So you can kind of try this out without having to use a premium part of your leather stock. A little bit more on there. LV, yeah, Louis Vuitton uses vachetta, don't they? It's not like this though, man. If you look at Louis Vuitton, it's very much the vachetta leather is pigmented for sure, pigmented with like a beige color, probably more like that color actually than the grain side on here. Yeah, if you look closely, it's not like just waxed or anything. I think it used to be, and then they decided to use pigments on the surface to give it a finish to slow down the patina, the aging process. Because believe it or not, a lot of people don't particularly care for their Louis Vuitton handbags to start looking aged after a few outings. And I guess it also makes it more difficult to sell items that have been on the shelves because they would have, you know, come into contact with ultraviolet light and handling and that kind of thing, which will make them more difficult to sell because it would make it look secondhand. So I can kind of see the reasoning behind doing that. But if you look at the vintage Louis Vuitton, it was very much this. And I guess with the yellow stitching that I've used, you can see on the very end there, makes it a little bit more LV. Maybe I should dye the edges red. So yeah, once that gets a little bit of wax on there, that will look nice. I'm just going to do the surfaces again. Let that absorb in. I don't really want to use the slicker on the surfaces because it compresses the leather a little bit. It's fine on the edges, but it compresses it too much. In areas of high compression, it's darker and it doesn't give much of a uniform surface. So I want it to go that kind of toffee color. Like it's already had a nice patina. Try the other way around. Yeah, it almost has like a wooden look to it, which I find quite pleasing. Polish is coming in now, so now we can go backwards and forwards. So after a few applications, it gets a nice polish and a little bit more color on there compared to the other side, which hasn't had that treatment. You can still see the sanding marks. Joko says, okay, thank you, very beautiful work, interesting technique, thank you. I believe he says, Tiago, I've had people ask me to remove the patina of old bags. I try my best to refuse it and makes them realize that the patina tells a story of them living life with the bag. Yeah, it's a very personal thing, right? You have to really ask yourself, before doing leather work, did you really appreciate a patina? And the answer to that may be yes. But a lot of us kind of, when we got involved in leather and we understood how it works and how it ages and, you know, the story and the romance behind it, we kind of grow in appreciation. And then, when someone else doesn't quite understand that, and we're like, oh no, it's you should like this. It's we forget that we didn't always like it. I mean, some things I like to look aged 100%. And there are other things I don't want to look aged. Like if I bought myself a nice watch, you might see on vintage watches, the lume on the hands, the glow in the dark parts. It over time begins to, especially what they used to use on there, begins to turn this orange color, and it's like very sought after. If someone can find a Rolex, a vintage Submariner with, the lume has gone that deep orange, it's like, mwah. Now, if I bought a watch and after 6 months it went from the light yellow or greeny color to what it is to orange, I think there was something wrong with it, and I'd take it to a watch repair guy and I'd be like, "Is something wrong with this? What's going on?" But to some people, that will be, they wish their watch would do that. It'd be chef's kiss. They'd be so happy. So it really depends. On leather, I like it. On some other things, I might not like it. It's a very personal thing. But yeah, getting rid of a patina, you'd have to dye it a dark color, or use some kind of pigment, I guess, wouldn't you? How many hours have you spent on this tool? About an hour and a half yesterday, 2 hours maybe. So that plus this, and I've been on here for 38 minutes, which is mostly talking. I wouldn't say it's a quick process, but I could have done this in a much shorter time. It just depends on what standard you want it to be. So this is diluted toconol. It's works the same way. It's just easier to put on, and I like to do it in stages. So it's water and toconol, and it's mostly water. If I just put toconol and then polished it, it's difficult getting that toconol, the leather underneath, damp again, because it kind of forms a barrier. When it's diluted, you get the polishing aspect of it, but it doesn't prevent the next layer from going on as much. And then once you've built up a few layers, it will, but it gives you time to work the leather surface a little bit better. I actually don't really like toconol neat. I rarely use it neat because it's a pain in the ass to put on. Even if you just do a 50-50 mix, you can put it on your leather edges with just a bit of sponge very easily. And it just takes a couple of applications to get the same effect as one. So it's just much faster to put on. Because sometimes you put it on and it's thick, and then you start kind of polishing it and it all comes off, and it's a bit of a pain sometimes to use. So it's starting to resist the next application now, so there's enough toconol built up on the surface. It's taking a good 10-15 seconds to actually start looking dark like that. So this will be the last one, and then after this I'm going to let it dry thoroughly. And then comes a little bit of wax on the surface. You could, at this point, still melt wax in. It should still penetrate, but you'd need a little bit of heat to do that. So right now, it's still not in its final polished state. And I'll show you in just a minute. Okay, that should be enough for now, and we're going to let it dry thoroughly. Take that off. So there we go. That's where we are at the moment. And once that's waxed, those kind of like light colored areas that you see will become a lot more uniform across the surface, and that will look quite nice. But it's important to get that kind of initial polish first of all, and then the wax will soak in and give a nice finish, and then a buff polish, and we're good to go. Tiago says there's an Italian brand that makes restoration products for luxury brands. They have a product that removes the patina on vachetta leather. I would imagine that would have to be. It would have to bleach the leather somehow, wouldn't it? Because it's a reaction with the tannins inside the leather that begins to darken it through rubbing, through oils, through water, through sweat, through UV exposure, etc. Yeah, I can only imagine it would have to be some kind of bleaching compound that would do that. Interesting. They're called gray chemical SRL. Interesting. Thank you, Joko. It's a foam that the leather absorbs. Interesting. Yeah, I've never tried bleaching leather before. I wonder if you get a little bit of like chlorine bleach or something and put it on a patina. I wonder what would happen. Maybe nothing. Might even darken it. Who knows? But interesting to see what's in it. Maybe there's a material safety data sheet available online, which might give you some clues as to what's in it. Maybe you can fabricate a homebrew version of it with your MSDS. Cool. All right, guys. This is going to go to the side now. And it's, that's so smooth. If I close my eyes, I can't feel that transition anymore because it's all been sanded perfectly smooth. Oh, it smells good too. Damn, vachetta does smell good when it's working. All right, guys, for those brand new, as I always say, don't forget to check out leathercraftmasterclass.com and get your free video on how I hand stitch. I'll be doing a little bit more soon. I'm going to try and do a bit more lives this month, so don't forget to turn on those notifications. And if you did learn something new or you just found this video cool, I'd appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for the chat, and I'll see you later. Cheers.